Hello everyone, Brian Rector here from Innate Coaching Consulting. Today we're bringing up day 2, the patient's first experience in your office. So look at the following videos with day 1, day 3, the financial, the consultation. So this is day 2 when we introduce the goal sheet to the patient. That's specifically what we're going to go over today is the goal sheet. We're looking at how it's presented to the patient as well as what is said to the patient when the doctor reviews it. Now, I recommend to most doctors that they review the goal sheet with them, not necessarily a CA or a front desk person. There's going to be clinical questions that might be asked to the patient, and I want the person who's best handled, best prepared to answer those questions to be doing that. So without going any further, let's take a look at what a goal sheet looks like for a patient. So let's take a look here. So here you can see here it's given as a it says welcome back, right? So this is their second visit. This one is written up for kinetic rehab and spine. And this is what you're trying to communicate to the patient. So it's really your philosophy that's written here in a description of what the patient is going to experience. Here we talk about a subluxation is caused by an overload of stress. Now, granted, we already talked about this on day 1, but this is, again, to reiterate on day 2 exactly what we told them again on day 1. So when we look at what's coming up and when we review the subluxation sheet and also the thermoscan and SEMG, they are working off of this goal sheet. So and it talks about the physical, chemical, and emotional stresses. So we want to start planting the seed within the patient, understanding that emotional, physical, and chemical stresses all contribute to an overall issue with the patient or their signs and symptoms that they've come in with. So we're trying to connect the dots, right? There's a gap between what you're trying to explain to the patient and what the patient understands health to be. So we want to make sure we are going over that in a detailed, and you'll see here as I go over the goal sheet in more detail, what a Socratic question is like. Like, why am I asking a question? Where am I trying to lead the patient? Really, we're trying to get the patient to understand their overall picture of health. That's really what we're trying to do. So when you look through here, today you're going to receive a chart which explains where your subluxations are and how they may be affecting your nervous system. Again, this is planting the seeds of the subluxation of the nervous system, connecting the dots for the patient. So even though this is completely customizable for every office, you want to make sure you follow kind of the guides, like what your philosophy is here, what the patient's going to be going through here, and then really, what the patient should expect, connecting the dots, filling in those gaps, and then of course a little thank you to the patient, and then instructions. So we want them to return this, fill out after the goal sheet, and so they understand. So first off, when a patient comes in to the office on their second visit, they're all greeted with a wow greeting. Now we talked about that in other videos, so please find the other videos on the channel. But they're greeted with a wow greeting, and then they're instructed front to back. The CA will say something like this: "Well, Mary, welcome back to our office. Dr. Rector is going to be working with you today, and he's going to be going over what he found yesterday, the report of findings, and also we're going to be talking about your goals as far as your health and how can we better serve you. Our office prides itself on an overall wellness mentality. That means we look at all aspects of your health and well-being, including your lifestyle, and we really want to understand how we can better serve you. So please take the little extra time and be as detailed as possible on this goal sheet, so when Dr. Rector goes over it with you, he'll understand what your thoughts are, or what you believe in health, and or so he can ask any further questions. So again, every time a patient, I can't say this enough, every time a patient enters your office, you want to make sure they're never caught off by surprise. You always want to let them know where they're going, where they're headed, what's the goal we're trying to attain. So all your verbiage, all your scripts are always formatted that way, so the patient knows what's coming next. Welcome to the office. Dr. Rector is going to see you in a few minutes. You need to fill out these forms, right? Then you're going to be adjusted. Then after you're done, you're going to come up to talk to me. You're going to then schedule your following appointment. Even though it sounds kind of silly sometimes, when I worked with offices before, right? Like, I'm not sure I want to say all that. The patient will appreciate it. Trust me. When we talk to them, and I always use this as a comparison, right? When I talk to someone like they're a 5-year-old, I want to talk to not at their level, like they're 5 years old or a 5th grader, really. It's more of dumbing it down, excuse the English, dumbing it down so they understand what they're going through. Now, you're going to have highly educated patients, just like I do, that come in the office. But I always find when it comes towards health, you're still having to dumb it down, right? If I say, a subluxation affects the nervous system, I go into detail on how that affects afferent, efferent nerves, all this different stuff. Shoom, I go over the head. And remember, when a patient's confused, they don't move forward. They're going to be backwards, because no one's going to move into a purchase or into a program of care that they're confused about. So the more you use big terminology, you're going to confuse them. So always pay attention to how you're communicating. So let's get right into that. Let's get right into the sheet here. Now you see the first question: do you consider yourself healthy? This is a yes or no question. And the reason is we do this because you want a confirmation from the patient that what they believe. It's a black or white question, yes or no. Then as we go through the questionnaire, they're going to be more definitive on how they came to that decision. And be honest with you, I'll have a lot of times a patient will say, will tell me that they consider themselves healthy. But then when we get into some of these following questions, they'll go back and change it. Well, I guess I'm not. Remember, on the top of our subluxation chart, it says, do you have a back problem or a health problem? And we really want the patient to understand that they have a health problem and not just a back problem. So, question 2 here. From a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate your overall health and well-being? So, mine says overall health and well-being. You can put your health, whatever you're comfortable with. It's mainly about asking the question. It's not so much getting caught up on the words that are in the question. So on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate your overall health and well-being? I get this with so many different answers, right? I can get a 6, I can get a 7, and it becomes very confusing to the patient, right? How do I rate my overall health and well-being? Well, they're looking for symptoms, right? They're looking for pain. They're looking for other bits of evidence that proves their answer to be correct, right? So if I say I'm unhealthy or fat, I have to have evidence to prove me correctly. So how the patient comes to that answer, say 7 out of 10, or even a 10 out of 10, we want to now go into what's the evidence? How did you come to that answer? So I might say, Mary, so I see here that you put a 7 out of 10. What do you feel is the missing aspect of your overall health and well-being? So instead of being a 10 out of 10, what would you say it is? And then let them elaborate, let them speak, and you want them to say it instead of us picking it out. Now, the questions coming up here, right? The questions coming up are regarding, right, their health and well-being. So you look at what are some of their habits. Exercise, how many days a week, medications, daily vitamins, fast food, tobacco use, pray, meditate. So let's talk about why I use each one, why I put these down. And you can add more if you think it's appropriate or take away one. But these are the most common areas that bring up conversation, or these are some of the issues that I think the patient might have understanding where their overall health and well-being is. So if we look at exercise, most people think you have to exercise regularly to be, attain health, right? To be healthy. So a lot of times you'll see a 1 here, right? 1 time per week, but then you look up here, they have it rated 9 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10, even a 7 out of 10, right? For some people. But then when I ask, why do you only put 1 time a week? I might get answers like, I'm a construction worker, and, I'm a chiropractor, right? I move around all day. I get in over 12,000 steps a day. Whatever. We're just not leaving the question to be answered. We're actually looking for the detail behind the question. So I want to hear what's their reasoning again, why they rated. So make sure you ask for each one, why. Medications. Here's a common one. I'll have a patient come in and tell me that they're absolutely healthy. Then I look in their chart and they're on blood pressure medication or cholesterol medication or some type of medication for anything. Then we want to understand what their paradigm is. What is their paradigm regarding health? What is their belief? Do they believe it's only symptoms? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. By getting in the conversation around this goal sheet, it'll allow you to understand the patient. And when we understand a patient, then you can give a plan for them that they will believe in as well. The doctor, you must believe in it. The front desk must believe in it. Everyone must believe in the plan for the patient, not just the patient. Daily vitamins. Now, some of these are in regards to the stuff below here, right? What other services do we offer? So we have many different services that we offer in the office, but here we're highlighting what they are. And you can say daily vitamins 0 or 1 or 2. And sometimes I'll say 0. So this might bring up a conversation of, I don't take any vitamins because I found them to be expensive. Then I'll ask, well, if you had a vitamin or nutritional support that was affordable to you, would that be something interesting or you'd be interested in? And they'll say yes. Well, then I go down here. Well, then if it's a yes, if I put it into your plan and it's affordable to you, would you be in a nutritional, counseling or been supplements and vitamins? They'll say yes. Of course, then we circle it. Then when we put together their plan on the following visit, which will be coming up in other videos, that'll be included. Fast food, tobacco use, pray, meditate. Again, now we're looking at their habits of lifestyle. So when I talk about chronic stress to the patient, I'm using the I'm using the examples that they gave me. So say fast food, 2 times a week. I'm going to ask where they go for fast food. McDonald's, okay? Or whatever it is. Tobacco use. Well, I don't smoke cigarettes, but I vape. Right? That's a common one now. I don't pray, but I meditate. I pray, but I don't meditate. And we're understanding how do we communicate better with this patient. So when I reference fast food, I'm going to reference McDonald's for this patient. I'm going to reference vaping, right? The stress that vaping plus plus fast food does to the body can have an effect of overall health and well-being. If you don't take the time to meditate or pray to have the balance emotionally, it's going to affect the overall health and well-being. Again, these are just examples. I'm trying to do the best I can to give you an example of what a real patient might say. And obviously there's going to be different scenarios, different type of patients for every situation. So we want to make sure we look at and have analogies and examples for each type of patient. So what do I mean by each type of patient? If I'm a 35-year-old woman with 2 children, I'm not going to talk about changing in the tires on your car and maintenance, right? I might use that for someone who works on cars or for someone who understands cars. For a woman, 35-year-old with 2 children, I might use the stress of bringing up children, the stress of being a super mom, having all the pressures put on you, her being the 3rd or 4th or 5th person on the totem pole that she takes care of. All these different things that are relevant or relevant to her versus using an example. So what I suggest you do is actually communicate to all different types of people and see what examples they get, and then use those examples with other patients. Use other stories, analogies with other patients of that type, so you can communicate and give the examples to them easier. Now, sometimes it takes 3 or 4 analogies to get the person to understand what really is going on. But most of the time you can come up with a good idea. The amount of phone stress, having your head down all the time, focusing, on your phone. Right now it's, COVID 2020 here, COVID-19 going on. So now we got students staying at home, doing their homework on a desk in front of the computer all the time. Moms having compound, being a mother and a teacher and taking care of it and going back to school, all these other things. So we have evidence of all different types of stresses, but we want to make sure we're explaining it to the patient in a language or analogy that they understand, not just that you understand. All right, so as we go down here, now we're going to get into health goals. So please check the areas of interest and areas that you feel you need assistance with. Here again, we're having the patient write it out, check it off. I believe when a patient writes it down and actually sees it marked off with their own highlight, with their own handwriting, you see here they're putting their name on here, so they're filling this out. This makes it concrete. So when I reference back and forth during their care, I'm referencing back this sheet. So remember, Mary, right? You told me you had issues with stress management, so I want to make sure I'm using and communicating her about stress management. Mary, how's the exercises? How's the stretching at home going? Mary, have you found some spiritual growth? Are you doing things with praying and meditating? These are ways to hold the patient accountable. And not to get way ahead, but you can see here my last question is about accountability. How can I hold you accountable as a doctor? So as we go through this is the final question. So I can go back and talk to the patient about these things that they marked off. The next question, what do you feel needs to change to meet your goals? Now, some doctors have a hard time with this one just because they feel like they're confronting the patient. Not that at all. If I'm going to truly help you as a person, if I'm going to truly understand what my best way to approach you and talk to you is, I have to know more about you as a person, right? I have to understand who you are, what you're about. That way I can help you the best. And sometimes I'll even say that to the patient. Some patients will tell me, wow, these questions, I've never had such a detailed questionnaire from a doctor. Yeah, and I'll go into that verbiage. I want to help you out the best I can. And in order for me to do that, I have to understand who Mary is. What is Mary about? What motivates Mary? And, how can I hold you accountable? So what do you need? What do you feel needs to change to meet your goals? Things what I'll hear: more time, more money. I just get off my butt, or different things like that. So the biggest one, you'd be surprised on this one, is not money. People don't think they need money to attain health. What they do think, though, is time. So that's the biggest one here, the biggest pushback. They need more time. And depending on the patient and how much detail you want to get in at this point, you can address time. You can address time management. You can also give them recommendations. Now, I have met several books recommendations that I'll use for the patient on time management, but I also talk to them about me, how I live my life, and the things that I do in order to save on time. Up at 5 in the morning, go to bed at 10 at night, right? I'm making time and prioritizing the values. This is the other thing I'm trying to do, right? I'm not necessarily asking a patient point blank, what are your values in life? But it's what I'm looking at, right? How do they value health? And if I'm going to ask them to purchase something they don't value that much, I'm not going to succeed, right? So we have to make sure that the patient is ready and understands the value of what you're going to give them before you ask them to purchase, right? A lot of doctors stick with the day 1, day 2, right? And they have to sell it to the patient on day 2. They have to create the value. We have to have them spend the money so they understand the value. That's not necessarily so. We have to create the value first, and then they're going to spend the money, not force them to understand the value. And I hope I explained that well. But we want to make sure we understand, what they need to do to change their goals. Okay? This is the next one. Which one of your health goals presents the biggest challenge to you? Again, here we go. Who is this person? I've had things my spouse doesn't help me out, or real stuff, real life situations that are not allowing this patient to get the goals that they want. So we as doctors, we have to have some form of help in a solution and or guidance that we want them to have. Remember, we talked about the rapport strategies before, and they're looking at me as a mentor, as a doctor. They're not necessarily looking at me as a teacher. That's not what I want to be. I don't want them to sit in class and kind of listen to me and just gab all the time. I want to become their mentor so that they can follow me, right, in my guidelines to attain the goals that they want to attain. They have to see the big picture here. So when we ask them what presents the biggest problem, that's a hurdle you must get over. If we don't address that, if we don't get through time, if we don't get through money, if we don't get through the spouse, they're not going to achieve their goals. So we, as a chiropractor or acupuncturist or physical therapist, have to have some form of guidance. Now, I'm not asking you to be a therapist, a psychotherapist, or anything like that, which you shouldn't be. But if we see that the patient needs help with that, or needs help in an instance for a therapist, you better have a good referral for them. So you have to prepare yourself for the different types of feedback you're going to get, type of answers that you'll get from this goal sheet, because they vary quite a bit. What would your health be like if you continued what you're doing now? Here's a big one. This question again, I want the patient to think. Sometimes as I get to this question, as we go over it, now they change their answer. Because sometimes it'll say, oh, about the same it is. And now if they say, oh, it's about the same, it'll be about the same as it is now. I'll ask them, well, if you continue to have fast food 3 times a week, smoke or vape, take medications, and don't exercise, do you think your health is going to be better? And they'll say, oh, no, it's not going to be better. I guess it'll be worse. I'll ask, Well, are you guessing, or do you think that would be a true answer? A patient sometimes will push back and make a joke of it or make light of it because they don't want to get into it. And it's a defense mechanism. So if I have a patient that responds to me and says, oh, yeah, I get it. I'm like, yeah, you do get it. But why didn't you put that down here? Why didn't you put your honest answer here? And sometimes I'll get like this. Oh, I didn't think you'd even read this sheet. Or, I don't know, I didn't want to kind of get into it. When it comes to this last question, how do you hold them accountable? You have to break down, let's call them the walls, because we all have walls, we have barriers, protective mechanisms that we've developed over the years. We have to break down those barriers in order to help them. They got to seriously consider you their mentor, and seriously trust you with their health. Think about that. I'm trusting you with my health. That's a huge trust. So we must be able to break down these barriers and help that patient. So again, what would your health be like if you continue to do what you do? So sometimes I spell it out again, like I just shared with you. Sometimes it's, I would be terrible. I would die early. I would die like my so-and-so. I ask them to explain that to me. I want them to feel what they're saying. So I don't want to die like my mother did at 54, had a heart attack. How old were you when your mother died at 54? I want them to really feel what it is, that, because I want to understand who they are, right? I want them to feel it so I can understand. That's the real way through emotion that we understand a patient, is what they're saying, how they're explaining. To the next one. How committed are you to make the changes necessary to meet your health goals? Huge question. When I first grab this questionnaire, that's the first question I look at. Now, I don't necessarily bring it up to the patient. That's the first question I look at. If I say somewhat committed, fully committed, or I don't know, or whatever it is, this tends to be a money and value issue right here. Why they're not giving you a complete answer like fully committed? Because one, they don't understand the value, and two, they're concerned about cost. You're going to have to address all those different barriers here. So, for example, if the patient says, I'm really worried, the reason why I'm not fully committed is because I don't understand, I don't know how much it's going to cost me, so I'm not going to do that. So we then have to go back and explain to them, we have plans set up. Your insurance is going to cover. I have cash plans. If I can make it affordable to you, is it something you're interested in? Obviously, we want to give a yes. Okay, right? So we want to make sure they're confirming, yes, I'm still fully committed if you can make it affordable. And when I talk about and go over the report of findings, their SEMG and their subluxation chart, I'm going to come back to this and I'm going to reference they're fully committed. So I'll say something like, well, you see here C4 that goes to the thyroid gland, and that's been subluxated for a while, and you already have some deterioration there. So if you think about it, if you didn't take care of that now, what would happen to the thyroid gland? What do you think would happen? And, they'll say, well, a thyroid gland will break down or whatever. I said, do you feel that's something you should be fully committed and taken care of? Yes, I do. Yeah, I definitely want to take care of it. So I'm referencing this sheet again, back. But if they say fully committed, if they say partially committed, another thing they're looking at is financials, right? How much is it going to cost me to do this? So we want to make sure we take the time to build value so they understand what the care they're going to get. So with our commitment to you as a person, we would like to know how you would like to be held accountable in achieving your goals. So how do I communicate with you? Do you want me to scold you if you don't do your exercises, your home care? Do you want me to call your mom, right, and tell them? All different things, right? How do you want me to, take care of who you are? Right? How do you want me to hold you accountable? So we want to do this carefully while we discuss it with the patient, but also bringing some humor to it, because I want to make sure they get that I'm serious about what I'm doing, but I'm also going to, have some humor and be fun. I want to make this fun. No one wants to go to a boring practice where they can't have fun. So it's serious, but also I want to be able to help you. How do I hold you accountable? And let them talk. Let them hear, well, I never really did well with, getting yelled at. Well, we don't yell here. We're definitely not going to do that. Or I need more encouragement. Reminds me of a story of one of my patients, Kathy, who lost 105 pounds while under our office. She did obviously went through chiropractic care for several years. She came and saw me until her and her husband moved out of the area. But she lost 105 pounds. And I said, well, what's one of your issues, Kathy? Why are you having difficulties following through? Because you know what to do. I mean, she knew she had to exercise. She knew how to do things and eat right. She said, well, I have problems with follow through. I said, well, let's pick a date. I'm just going to put it in your chart today. Pick a date. When are you going to start exercising? And she said, tomorrow. I said, okay, what time are you going to get up? She said, 6 o'clock. I said, okay, great. You're going to get up at 6 o'clock. When should you be exercising tomorrow? She says, I should be on the beach exercising by 7. So, okay, perfect. I didn't tell her, but at 6 o'clock in the morning, I gave Kathy a call. It was a Saturday morning, right? She looked at me like, she acted like I was nuts when I called her. She goes, who's this? This is Dr. Rector. Your friendly chiropractor. I'm calling to make sure you're getting up. That little phone call, which took me 2 minutes at the most, 3 minutes maybe, helped Kathy follow through and lose 105 pounds at the office, got off all her medications, fabulous, got her husband remarried, all this other stuff that happened to her life. I was actually invited to their wedding, right, because of things like that. But it was just that little bit, so we know how to communicate with the patient, and we can take that extra step, right? So things like that, doctors, that we want to make sure that we're doing to hold that patient accountable. If we go back here and look at the sheet, right, we have at the bottom, we have what services you do. And you can see I got blanks here. In doctors, you can put whatever services you have in there. And I just noticed ADHD treatments is repeated. But you want to make sure you put all the different services you have in there so the patient can see what you have value. See what will help build value. So they'll circle it and you address each one if it hasn't already been addressed before. And then sometimes I'll say things like, I understand you want to learn functional movement training, or do you want to have individual weight loss? But I also found that, Mary, if I introduce you to too many things at once, that a lot of patients don't follow through. So what I'm going to do is stair step my plan on your next visit and kind of go over. So we're going to address all these things that you circled. We just want to all do it at once. And especially for someone who told me they had a time issue. So we want to make sure our plans coincide with the patient's goal sheet. We don't want to make, act like we didn't listen to them at all, especially like someone said they have a time issue and you have them coming in, 3 times a week for 2 hours a visit, getting every single modality you have in your office. Patient's going to leave sooner or later. So we want to make sure we're truly listening to what that patient says. Well, doctors, I hope you enjoyed, who was ever watching this, Front Desk CA's today's training video of day 2, going over the goal sheet. There's other parts to day 2, so please look for the other following videos on day 2 as far as the SEMG thermoscan subluxation station, and also we'll go over the subluxation chart. It's Brian Rector from Innate Coach and Consulting. If you have any interest in coaching or consulting with me, please click the link below. I look forward to talking to you soon. Have a great day.